Senator
But
Paul,
that's not true.
Well,
it's not true. It's
you want me
not
to read
true.
from the,
Whether I don't care about the report. I know these people intimately. We talk to them all the time. I don't care about the report. I know these people intimately. We talk to them all the time.
Exactly. So he says, I don't want to hear this report. And he just keeps talking over him until he shuts up. And he says, we know these people intimately. We talk to them all the time. Well, just this week, we had Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency during Obama's tenure. He was on the Kelly file, and he talked about manipulation of ISIS intelligence. And he said, it's so bad, we need to have an investigation. Understand that when we had McCain running against Obama, they're both going to do the same thing for the globalists. Mm-hmm. Okay, we were given a choice of an old white guy or a young charismatic black guy. That was all it was. It was rigged so that Obama would win this. But are they really terrorists? This is a truth, as Drudge points out, that's been unfolding. It's been unfolding for quite some time. Going back to 2013, this article we had from INFOWARS, Free Syrian Army rebels defect to Islamicist group Jabhat al-Nusra. And this was these were fighters who were defecting at the time. In December 17th, 2013, top Free Syrian Army commander defects to al-Qaeda-linked group. This guy was named Jamal. He was Saddam al-Jamal. He headed the Allah Akbar Brigade. Oh, they sound like our moderate rebels, don't they? The Allah Akbar Brigade. He was a top FSA commander. He then went more openly to al-Qaeda. In 2012, we had Hula eyewitnesses saying the Free Syrian Army was responsible for a massacre. This is a situation where they entered a city, they secured it, then they began killing people in a cleansing action against loyalists to Assad, executing elderly people, women, and also children. The dead were put on display for the United Nations and the corporate media. They were portrayed as victims of Assad's military. Nevertheless, they went back and they talked to the eyewitnesses, and you can see that video that's linked in that article. Then another one, August 12th, 2012, UN designates Free Syrian Army affiliates as al-Qaeda. That's the UN.
That's the UN.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much, David. You guys can find all these reports on INFOWARS.com.
You guys have the exclusive for, which is a product called Deep Cleanse. And why I'm so excited about it is it's a unique formula, almost like the iodine crystals. We have two unique products that nobody in the world has. One of the most amazing ingredients in the world, and it's called shilajit, and it's actually known as blood of the mountain or rock sweat because thousands of years ago, as a matter of fact, this ingredient was only given to the elite of the elite thousands of years ago up in the Himalayan mountains and in Tibet.
And we wanted to put this in stuff for a couple years, but we couldn't get an organic form.
Right. I mean,
so let's explain. I mean, this stuff's so good, we couldn't put it out for years.
Right. So I had to actually, it's kind of like the iodine crystals, finding a source deep in the earth that we could get the cleanest source available. But in Tibet and in Nepal and in the Himalayan mountains, thousands of years ago, they watched these monkeys. And during the summer months, the monkeys would go up into the mountains.
Now you're being racist against monkeys.
And they would pick this black substance from the mountains. And so in Russia, they actually, it grows in Russia in the mountains and in the Himalayas and only in the summer. And shilajit is actually the decomposition of up to 7,000 different medicinal herbs. So it decomposes, all these different herbs decompose in the Himalayan mountains and the volcanic soil up there. And what happens in the summertime...
So it's almost like an oil from...
Yes, it's high in fulvic acid, it's high in humic acid.
Because they're always claiming oil is really from decomposed animals and plants. There is some oil that is based from fossils, but most of it's really abiotic. But so this is a true fossil source? I mean, explain it to me.
It is, it's really the decomposition, like I said, of over 7,000 different medicinal herbs and plants. And with the rocks and the pressure deep in the mountains, it freezes and during the summertime and the pressures build it up.
It oozes out.
It oozes out. So it literally oozes out of the mountain.
It's like rock sap.
It's like rock sap. It's black and it's highly nutritious. Even in the 1980s when the Olympic athletes in Russia were accused of being on steroids, they found out that they were actually been given shilajit because it works as an anabolic as well. and it builds muscles. It's a big dose in there. The second big main ingredient in there is a volcanic zeolite concentrate. And what this formula is designed to do, the shilajit and the zeolites have a real strong negative charge. All the metals and chemicals and PCBs and VOCs have positive charges. So these go in, they grab it, and then they safely eliminate it through the body so you can become healthy. I mean, this is an amazing formula. I wish I actually had it, but because this was an exclusive InfoWars Life product, you're the only one in the world that has this formula now. And you know, there is going to be a limited supply available when you sell out because you can only harvest this once a year.
How do people take it? How is it recommended that this be done? Just a daily dose?
Yeah, daily dose. The instructions are on the label. You know, of course, I kind of modify it for each individual. It depends on what your lifestyle is. I mean, honestly, the best thing to do is for you to avoid all these chemicals and toxins in your environment and try to identify them and start slowly reducing them. But personally, I'm going to probably take it every day, every other day, and I'll probably go with about a dropper full to maybe 2 dropper fulls. I don't expose myself to any chemicals.
InfoWarsLife.com. Please also support our local AM and FM affiliates, support their local sponsors or become a sponsor, and spread the word. Because these aren't just great products. This is how we fund this independent operation. We're not taxpayer funded like MSNBC or NPR, and neither is your local station. So support them, folks. This is a war.
Just how long can the international community pretend to keep its dirty secret in the proverbial closet that they actually support ISIS? Lines are clearly being drawn as NATO ally Turkey shot down a Russian jet fighter and then shot the ejected pilots dead as they descended in parachutes, claiming the jet was in Turkish airspace. Putin claimed the jet was down 4 kilometers from the Turkish border in Syria, as Putin expressed outrage, calling the attack a stab in the back and threatened consequences. The Russian rescue helicopter attending to the downed jet was shot down as well, fired on by Obama's supposed moderate Syrian rebels.
I do think that this points to a ongoing problem with the Russian operations, in the sense that they are operating very close to a Turkish border, and they are going after moderate opposition that are supported by not only Turkey but a wide range of countries.
The incident occurred just days after Turkish officials warned Russia to immediately end its operation against ISIS after warplanes bombed border regions. Recently, it was revealed the Obama White House is giving ISIS a 45-minute warning before bombing their oil tankers by dropping leaflets advising potential jihadists to flee before airstrikes in Syria. The leaflet drops are justified under the premise that the oil tanker drivers might be civilians and not ISIS recruits, although it's an explanation that doesn't wash with critics. J.E. Dyer writes, "It's not like these drivers are innocent, uninvolved civilians like children or sick people. They're waging ISIS's war just like the other non-uniform participants who make up 100% of ISIS's ranks. This is how far the Obama administration is going to avoid collateral damage. While it took the U.S. 15 months to even begin targeting ISIS oil refineries and tankers, airstrikes by Moscow destroyed more than 1,000 tankers in a period of just 5 days. In comparison, Colonel Steve Warren said the U.S. had taken out only 116 tanker trucks. U.S. airstrikes targeting ISIS oil assets are so rare that PBS was caught using footage of Russian fighter jets bombing an oil storage facility in Syria and passing it off as evidence of the U.S. targeting the Islamic State's oil infrastructure. U.S. military pilots have also confirmed that they were ordered not to drop 75% of their ordnance on ISIS targets because they couldn't get clearance from their superiors. The never-ending holiday propaganda campaign of fear is underway, as the State Department has issued terror warnings for every holiday since September 11, 2001, It is particularly fond of frightening people around Thanksgiving and Christmas. This year is no exception. On Monday, the State Department issued a worldwide travel alert. You're not safe anywhere. This travel alert expires on February 24th, 2016. The alert posted on the State Department's website says, if you plan to travel abroad during the holiday, the government says you should register with them. Incidentally, in standard bullying doublespeak, Jay Johnson at the Department of Homeland Security declared there is no specific credible or imminent terror threat at this time, and you may safely travel. As the NATO allies and New World Order stalwarts impatiently sit on their hands, it is beginning to become abundantly clear the collateral damage to the hidden globalist-backed ISIS campaign Russia is racking up is reaching a breaking point. John Bound for INFOWARS.com. Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven, leader of the Swedish Social Democratic Party, has finally announced that Sweden is no longer capable of maintaining the crushing weight of the hordes of Syrian refugees flooding the country. The numbers don't lie. 10,000 migrants a week and an estimate of 190,000 new refugees will inhabit Sweden by the end of the year. Not to mention a rape epidemic sweeping Europe, transforming Sweden into the rape capital of Europe, all in the name of anti-racist, bleeding-heart liberal ideals engineered by big banking globalists, allowing the cancer the refugees are actually escaping from to spread throughout Eurasia, hidden within the refugees' ranks. An engineered, soft invasion. Sweden's past success was in part related to careful reforms and fiscal responsibilities now being exploited by Prime Minister Löfven's controllers. Jörgen Mason writes that in 2013, Löfven's press secretary announced that the newly elected leader of the Swedish Social Democratic Party will be present at Bilderberg, at the invite of Swedish philanthropist Jacob Wallenberg. Wallenberg was one of 35 members of the Bilderberg Steering Committee in 2013. Bilderberg's brainchild was the EU. Its financial control over the EU's socialist leaders sponsoring the soft invasion of refugees is blatantly obvious, and just 2 years after Löfven attended Bilderberg, by all accounts, Sweden could be facing a collapse.
Right now, we receive between 50 to 80,000 people a month. We can only offer them tents for shelter, and right now it's going to get the winter time here, and it's about to turn between -20 to -30 Celsius. This has come to a point when you no longer can call it racism, because the picture is so much bigger than that, and it's come down to humanity. And right now, Sweden can't manage. We are sacrificing our elderly, we are sacrificing our preschools, our kindergartens, our school system, our elderly care, and the welfare system as it is. If you say this in Sweden, you're considered a racist. Even if you never say that we're going to stop immigration, we have to kick everybody out, it's considered racism to criticize the politics for immigration and asylum.
The refugees in Sweden have mistaken kindness for weakness. The Scandinavian Viking berserker rage is beginning to boil. Protesters in Sweden have burned down 17 immigration centers in the past 2 months. But the refugees continue to stoke the fire, bringing the violence of Syria to their hosts. Immigrant riots spring up weekly in Sweden, and refugees in Malmö, Sweden, are blowing up cars and police vehicles with grenade attacks. Now, Phase 2 of the Bilderbergers' invasion is rolling out in the United States. The Washington Examiner writes, President Obama's open-door immigration policy is set to accept more immigrants from Muslim nations over the next 5 years than the entire population of Washington, D.C., according to federal documents. Figures from the Department of Homeland Security show that the president has already issued 680,000 green cards to immigrants from Muslim nations over the past 5 years. Unless Congress changes his policy, that number will be repeated in the next 5 years. 2016 is ramping up to be a year of cultural devastation that will hit a slowly awakening public like a Mack truck. John Bound for INFOWARS.com.